There comes a day, child, when the thunder inside you begins to hush. A day when the weight of proving, pleasing, and performing grows too heavy to carry. You rise from your bed, not with the urgency of yesterday, but with a sacred pause in your chest. You whisper to yourself, not in arrogance, but in awakening, I deserve calm. You see, for too long, we have mistaken chaos for purpose. We have measured our worth in the volume of our business. We have believed that peace must be earned, that serenity must be chased. But oh, how mistaken that belief has been. Calm is not a prize at the finish line. It is the quiet garden you have carried inside you all along, waiting for you to come home. On that day, when you realize calm belongs to you, the world begins to move differently. The sharp edges of other people's opinions dull. The rush of competition fades into the background hum of irrelevance. You begin to understand that peace is not passive, it is powerful. It takes courage to sit in silence when the world demands noise. It takes strength to say no when the crowd is running toward wise. In that calm, you start to see your reflection more clearly. You notice how your heart beats steady when you stop rushing to be seen. You learn that your presence, your stillness, your gentle breath, all are acts of resistance in a culture addicted to chaos. You realize that you have nothing to prove, nothing to chase, nothing to beg for. Education, dear soul, begins here, not in the books, but in the stillness of your own knowing. Calm teaches more than any classroom. It teaches patience when others provoke. It teaches grace when the world feels heavy. It teaches understanding when words fall short. And so, you begin to protect your calm like a sacred flame. You stop explaining your peace to those who thrive on storms. You learn that calm is not the absence of sound, but the presence of understanding. It is the deep inhale before you speak truth, the exhale that releases all that was never yours to carry. Each sunrise becomes softer. Each choice becomes clearer. The more you honor your calm, the less you need to prove your worth. Because the day you realize you deserve calm is the day you start living, not reacting. It is the day you step into your wholeness, unhurried, unbothered, unshaken. Would you like me to continue the speech into its second part, eyes, as an extended educational reflection in the same Maya Angelou tone? It would deepen the emotional and philosophical essence for about 500 more words. There comes a day, child, when the thunder inside you begins to hush, a day when the noise that has lived within your chest finally grows tired of shouting. You wake not because the alarm demands it, but because your spirit whispers softly that it is time to be still. For years, you have run from silence as though it were a punishment. You have filled your hours with motion, with voices, with striving, believing that calm was something for others. Those who had earned it, those who had finished their work, those who had finally been allowed to rest. But the truth, my dear, is far gentler than that. Calm is not a trophy, it is your inheritance. It has always been yours, waiting behind the closed door of your rushing mind. The day you realize you deserve calm, something inside you begins to rearrange itself. The rhythm of your heart changes. It no longer races toward approval or runs from rejection. You begin to understand that the world will keep spinning whether or not you chase after it. You learn that peace is not found in the noise of achievement, but in the quiet knowing that you are enough even when you are still. The books may teach you of history and logic, but calm teaches you of yourself. It tells you that wisdom does not always come with words. It often arrives in the quiet moments between them. You start to remember that the strongest trees do not shout to prove their strength. They simply grow. They let their roots stretch deep into the soil, unseen yet unshakable. You, too, can root yourself in calm. You can learn to breathe before you answer, to listen before you react, to pause before you decide. This kind of calm is not weakness, it is mastery. It is the discipline of one who knows that storms will come and go, but the ground beneath can remain steady if you choose to be still. So many people will not understand your calm. They will call it distance, or disinterest, or pride. They will expect you to hurry, to worry, to explain your peace as if it were a crime. But you will know better. You will know that calm is the highest form of understanding, that it does not argue or defend. It simply stands like the ocean, deep and unbothered by the winds that pass across its surface. The day you realize you deserve calm, you also realize that you no longer need to fight for every inch of space. You simply take your place in the world without apology. You stop trying to earn rest. You stop asking permission to breathe. You stop waiting for the world to slow down so you can catch up. You slow down on your own. And in that moment, you become both student and teacher. You learn the sacred art of being, and in your stillness, you teach others that peace too can be chosen, right here, right now, by anyone brave enough to stop running. You see, for too long, we have mistaken chaos for purpose. We have worn exhaustion like a medal, convincing ourselves that the more we suffer, the more meaningful our lives must be. We have been taught to fill every silence with sound, every space with motion, every thought with worry. And yet, in all that business, in all that noise, we have lost the most precious lesson life offers. That calm is not a reward for doing more. It is a right that belongs to every soul willing to listen to its own quiet truth. When you begin to unlearn the rhythm of chaos, the world starts to look unfamiliar. The silence that once frightened you becomes a friend. You no longer seek validation from every passing voice, because you have found the one that matters most, your own. You start to realize that calm is not the absence of effort. It is the presence of balance. You still work, you still strive, but no longer from desperation. You move from intention. You breathe between tasks, you rest between battles, and you stop confusing constant movement with progress. There is a kind of peace that does not announce itself with fanfare. It moves quietly like sunlight through curtains at dawn. It asks for nothing, yet offers everything. When you begin to live in that peace, you stop being impressed by chaos. You stop admiring those who burn themselves out in the name of achievement. You start to admire instead those who can sit in their own stillness and smile, who can face the storms of life and choose not to be swept away. The mind, once addicted to urgency, will resist this stillness at first. It will tell you that you're wasting time, that you should be doing something, fixing something, proving something. But calm will whisper back, you already are something. And in that moment, something soft but powerful begins to unfold. You learn that you do not have to earn peace through pain. You do not have to prove your worth through struggle. You are not behind in a race that does not exist. This understanding transforms the way you move through the world. You begin to speak more slowly, to listen more deeply. You notice things you used to rush past. The laughter of children, the warmth of sunlight, the steady rhythm of your own breath. You begin to live in a way that honors your own pace. And in doing so, you discover that calm is not a single moment, it is a way of being. It is the strength to say no when everything around you screams yes. It is the grace to pause before reacting, the wisdom to walk away from what disturbs your spirit. It is the gentle reminder that you are not meant to live as a storm. You are meant to live as the sky, vast, open, and free. Calm is your true nature. The rest is only weather passing through. On that day, when you realize calm belongs to you, the world begins to move differently. The air feels lighter, though nothing outside of you has changed. The sun shines as it always has. The people around you speak the same words. The streets hold the same noise. But something within you has shifted. You no longer feel the need to match the speed of others. The rush that once felt necessary now feels like an old habit, one that no longer fits. You start to see that peace is not something given by circumstance. It is something claimed by awareness. You decide that the world does not get to dictate your pace, your reaction, or your rest. The sharp edges of other people's opinions begin to lose their power over you. You stop carrying the weight of misunderstanding. When someone throws their noise toward you, you let it fall before it reaches your heart. You begin to understand that most people who speak in anger are simply crying out from their own unrest. So instead of answering with more fire, you choose calm. You let your quiet be the teacher, your stillness be the example. For in that quiet, there is strength that cannot be shaken. You begin to understand that calm is not passive. It is not surrender. It is a deep, deliberate choice to rise above the current of reaction. It takes far more courage to stay grounded when others are shouting than it does to shout back. Calm demands discipline. It asks you to know your power and to withhold it when it serves no purpose. It is not about winning an argument, but about keeping your soul intact. When you no longer need to prove your peace, you have already won. In your calm, you discover new forms of power, the kind that does not demand attention, but commands respect. You walk into rooms and bring steadiness with you. You no longer chase the loudest voice because you have learned that truth does not need to be loud. It needs only to be real. You stop mistaking chaos for importance. You start to see that the strongest presence in any room is often the one that speaks least but listens most. Each day, you grow a little more comfortable in your own stillness. The energy that once went into defending yourself now goes into understanding yourself. You begin to realize that calm gives you clarity, and clarity gives you freedom. You see things as they are, not as fear paints them to be. You make choices from wisdom, not worry. And when you walk through the world with that kind of calm, everything begins to respond differently to you. Conflicts fade quicker. Conversations deepen. Your relationships soften. You find yourself no longer seeking peace, you are peace. The storms still come, but they no longer define you. Because when calm truly belongs to you, you understand that the storm is temporary, but the sky within you is eternal. In that calm, you start to see your reflection more clearly. The fog of other people's expectations begins to lift, and what stands before you is the truest version of yourself. Unfiltered, unmasked, unafraid. You notice that you are not broken. You are only buried beneath the noise. Each quiet moment becomes a mirror, showing you who you were before the world told you who to be. You begin to see that peace has always been your natural state. Chaos was only the distraction. Calm does not change who you are. It reveals who you've always been. When you stop rushing to be seen, you begin to see. You notice how your breath deepens when you let go of the need to impress. You notice how your body relaxes when you are no longer trying to prove your worth. In calm, you find a kind of beauty that is not for display. It is for living. You start to understand that joy is not hidden in grand moments of success, but in the quiet ease of being comfortable with yourself. You begin to understand that your stillness is a language the world has forgotten to speak. In a culture that glorifies noise, restlessness, and endless ambition, your calm becomes a quiet form of rebellion. It says, I do not have to exhaust myself to be worthy. It says, I do not have to be loud to be heard. It says, I can stand in peace and still have power. Your stillness becomes a teacher, not only for yourself, but for everyone who crosses your path. Education takes on a new meaning. You realize it is not only about gathering information, but about learning how to live in alignment with your truth. Calm teaches you that knowledge without peace becomes noise, and success without serenity becomes burden. You learn to listen to the lessons that silence offers, the lessons that no classroom can teach. You discover that wisdom comes not only from speaking, but from pausing long enough to hear what life is trying to tell you. In the quiet, you begin to separate what matters from what merely distracts. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You release the responsibility of carrying other people's storms. You stop apologizing for taking care of your spirit. You stop shrinking your calm to make others comfortable in their chaos. There is a sacred strength in that release, a liberation that comes when you finally give yourself permission to be still. And slowly that calm begins to shape your days. You walk differently, you speak more gently, you listen more deeply, you learn to move with intention, to choose presence over pressure. The more you honor that calm, the more you realize it was never something to find. It was something to remember. You are not returning to peace, you are returning to yourself. And so, you begin to protect your calm like a sacred flame. You realize it is delicate but powerful, something that must be guarded not with walls, but with wisdom. You stop offering explanations for your peace to those who live in chaos. You stop feeling guilty for stepping back, for needing silence, for choosing stillness over noise. You understand now that not everyone will appreciate your calm because some have built their identity around turmoil. But you no longer shrink your serenity to fit their storms. You begin to move through the world with quiet authority, knowing that peace is not weakness. It is mastery. You start to make deliberate choices about where your energy goes. You learn that not every battle deserves your response. Not every conversation requires your voice. You understand that silence can be a sentence more powerful than words. You stop letting urgency dictate your direction. When others move in haste, you stand in discernment. You no longer allow every wave to pull you from your depth. There is a calm in knowing that you can observe chaos without becoming part of it. That calm becomes your compass, guiding you through every distraction, every temptation to react. You begin to redefine success. It is no longer about being everywhere or pleasing everyone. It becomes about feeling centered in your own being. You find beauty in slowness, meaning in simplicity, joy in quiet moments. You stop measuring your days by how much you've done and begin to measure them by how peacefully you lived them. The noise of the world grows distant, but the voice of your spirit becomes clear. You realize that calm does not ask for anything external. It asks for presence, patience, and honesty with yourself. When you live from calm, you stop taking things so personally. You stop absorbing other people's pain as if it were your own. You begin to understand that peace is not just an emotion, it's a discipline. It's the practice of returning to yourself, no matter how many times the world tries to pull you away. There will still be storms. Yes, they will come, but you no longer meet them with panic. You meet them with understanding, with breath, with trust in your own strength. Calm becomes a kind of power that cannot be taken away, because it no longer depends on the world behaving the way you want it to. It depends only on your decision to remain grounded, to remain soft, to remain whole. You realize that calm is not something you visit. It is something you live inside of. It is the space between reaction and response, between confusion and clarity. And once you begin to live in that space, you never want to leave it again. Because calm, you learn, is not the absence of the storm. It is the quiet courage to stand unshaken while the storm passes around you. Each sunrise becomes softer. The light no longer feels like a demand to rush, but an invitation to begin again gently. You open your eyes and notice that the world moves at its own pace, and you are not required to chase it anymore. You take your time rising, letting your breath guide you, reminding yourself that calm is not something you have to earn anew each day. It is something that lives within you, waiting to be acknowledged. The morning no longer begins with a list of tasks, but with gratitude for simply being here, for having another chance to choose peace over pressure. Each choice you make becomes a quiet declaration of worthiness. You start to ask yourself, does this protect my peace or disturb it? And you learn to act accordingly. You no longer rush into commitments that drain you or conversations that dim your light. You understand that your calm is a sacred resource, and it deserves to be spent wisely. There is a maturity in that understanding, a wisdom that comes only from being tired of your own restlessness. You begin to see that the real work of life is not in doing more, but in learning when to stop, when to breathe, when to let go. As you honor your calm, you notice how your relationships shift. The people who value your stillness draw closer, while those who feed on chaos naturally drift away. You stop chasing those who misunderstand your peace, because you know that the ones meant to walk beside you will do so quietly, respectfully, without stirring the waters you've worked so hard to still. You learn that love, too, can be calm. It does not have to shout or demand or chase. It can simply exist, steady and kind, like the rhythm of your own heartbeat. You also begin to see that calm is courage. It takes courage to speak softly in a world that rewards loudness. It takes courage to slow down when the world tells you to hurry. It takes courage to stay steady when others lose themselves in noise. Calm is not the easy choice. It is the brave one. It requires faith in timing, trust in yourself and patience with life. It asks you to believe that what is meant for you will never require you to abandon your peace to have it. And as you walk through your days with this calm, you start to feel untouchable. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. You carry peace in your body like a quiet light. The noise around you may rise, but it can no longer reach the depth of your stillness. You are no longer a visitor in your calm. You have become it. You live it, breathe it, and teach it simply by being. And in that steady, unshaken rhythm, you begin to understand what freedom truly feels like. And when you reach that understanding, something even more profound happens. You begin to teach calm to the world without ever intending to. It flows through you naturally, the way sunlight finds its way through the smallest cracks. You realize that every act of calm becomes a ripple, touching lives you may never meet. When you refuse to react in anger, you remind others that stillness is strength. When you listen instead of rushing to speak, you show that patience is wisdom. When you choose peace over pride, you become a living lesson that serenity is not submission but self-mastery. The world learns from what it witnesses, not what it is told. So, when you move with calmness, you are teaching through presence. Children who see you breathe through frustration learn that emotions can be felt without being destructive. Friends who see you step away from conflict learn that peace is a choice, not a weakness. Strangers who cross your path feel your quiet energy and begin to slow down without knowing why. Calm becomes contagious in the most beautiful way. You start to see that your peace is not only for you, it is for the world around you. In this way, calm becomes service. You begin to heal spaces just by entering them with grace. You find yourself listening more deeply, not to respond, but to understand. You start to uplift without effort because your energy carries the weight of stillness. You become the one people seek when the noise of life overwhelms them, not because you have all the answers, but because you remind them of their own. The calm you nurture in yourself becomes the calm you gift to others. It teaches, without words, that peace is possible even in the middle of chaos. And perhaps the greatest realization of all is this: when you honor your calm, you give permission to others to honor theirs. You become a mirror of what is possible. People begin to see that they too can step away from the noise, that they too can live without rushing, that they too can be gentle and still be powerful. You begin to understand that calm is not meant to be kept. It is meant to be shared, radiated, extended. Like light from a single candle, your calm can ignite the peace in countless others without losing any of its own glow. The day you realize you deserve calm, you become a quiet revolution. You change not by force but by example. You show that there is strength in softness, that clarity is born in stillness, that compassion is found in composure. And as the world watches you live from that deep well of peace, it begins to remember something ancient, something sacred. That calm is not the absence of power, it is its purest form. And so, when you finally stand in that calm, unshaken and whole, you understand that peace was never something to be searched for. It was something to be remembered. You see that the world outside you will always rise and fall. People will come and go, storms will gather and fade, but within you lies a sanctuary untouched by it all. You have become the keeper of your own stillness, the guardian of your inner light. You no longer chase meaning, you create it in every quiet breath. You no longer seek love in chaos, you carry it gently in your calm. And as you move through life with this knowing, the world around you begins to soften too, for calm begets calm and peace teaches peace. That is the day, dear soul, the sacred day, when you finally stop surviving and start living. The day you realize you deserve calm and you choose again and again to stay there.